Yo, what's cooking, my love? It's just something I've been thinking about over the last couple of days. One of the biggest issues I feel like with the socio-political debate at the moment, and I think in society in general, just people communicating is when people have this don't like have their ideas challenged basically. And the moment you challenge somebody's idea, it becomes like combative for some reason. I mean, I'm talking in generalities, of course. There are people that don't feel like this, but there's many people who do. Um, I'm talking particularly for people who are, I don't know, on social media, influencers, coaches, or whatever you call yourself. Yeah. Why are you putting out your ideas if you don't want, if you're scared of your ideas to be challenged, or you don't like the idea of somebody disagreeing with you? One thing I notice that hinders debate a lot of the time is um, people's um, the lack of nuance people have for terminologies and words. Like there's two things that can happen. They either attribute fixed meanings to words that are very flexible because the word supports their narrative, or they take words that do have like a quite concrete and fixed meaning and just reinterpret the word to fit their own argument. And I'm like, what are you doing? That's not helpful at all. That's not helpful at all. And two words that I always see happen is argument and consequence. Argument and consequence are two words that I see this happens with so often. Like, I've even had it with people that I'm just engaging with on one-on-one. The moment we're disagreeing about the topic, and I'm like, I don't agree with your argument. Often you'll have like, oh, I'm not arguing. And it's like, no. You are arguing because you have a point and I have a different point. For example, let's say I say that cow's milk isn't good for the human body. You think cow's milk is good for the human body. We are now engaged in an argument because you are arguing one point and I'm arguing another point. Our points are opposed. That's what makes it an argument. It doesn't have to be aggressive. That's the thing. I think people attribute the word argument as negative. An argument doesn't have to be negative. An argument simply means an opposing position. So if you have an opposing position to the person or persons you are talking to, you're now engaged in an argument. The moment you start getting upset about that, now you've made it like an aggressive argument in the stereotypical sense of how people see an argument. But it doesn't have to be that. Arguments are just opposing points. And this idea of not liking to debate interests me. When people say they don't like to debate, because it's like, isn't life a debate? You debate with yourself. Should I do this or should I do that? If you're going to share opinions, especially if you're an opinionated person, you should be willing to debate because you can't get around that. Especially if you're trying to bring service to people in the realm of like, I don't know, social change or something like that. So getting onto this word consequence is another one. For some reason, well, I know what the reason is actually, but people tend to attribute the word consequence as this negative thing. I'm sure, like, I don't know, back in the day, if you were going to get in trouble, like your parents or your mother or father will say, if you do this, there's going to be consequences, and that consequence is going to be negative. But consequence, the word itself, doesn't have to be negative. Michael Johnson trained very hard in his college days. As a consequence, he became one of the greatest athletes of all time. A consequence is the result of something. It doesn't have to be negative. Sure, you could just use the word result, which seems more neutral. because it's used more often, and it's used in a, I guess, in more of a neutral sense. But I mean, you could take it as a result. Can result be negative? I mean, you could say, um, so and so popped too many pills, and as a result, he had an overdose. The result is negative in that situation. You may not perceive the word result as a negative word per se, but the actual result of that situation was negative. So a consequence is a result. But I guess a consequence, when you say the word consequence, you're usually tying it directly to an action that's happened. Whereas when you say result, it can be more passive in the sense of, I don't know, the result, as I said, the result of the economic, there was bad decisions made in the market, and the result was that economic um, system crashed. Or, I mean, that's still negative, right? But I don't know, for whatever reason we don't perceive it as negative. I guess because it's the actions are less tangible. There's many people involved in what happened in that situation, and the acts that it seems less tangible to say result. But I could also say as a consequence the market crashed. So yeah, consequence doesn't have to be a negative word. That's my point. So long story short, um, if you're willing to put your opinions out there, be willing to debate, and just learn how to debate if you don't like it. That's simply it. And think about the context of words.